Mumbai. If you look at the entire value chain, including suppliers and dealer, we employ around about 25,000 people in this country. Last year we sold 140,000 vehicles. Our range really goes from the Volkswagen Virtus for 10 lakh rupees to a Lamborghini Huracan for 5 crore rupees. So please sign up for whatever is in your budget. The 24% figure was mentioned, and that aligns very well with Volkswagen Group, because a few years ago, 2018-19, we sat down as one of the biggest automotive groups and calculated our own CO2 contribution, so to say. And we found out that Volkswagen Group, with all its activities, including commercial vehicles, is responsible for around about 2% of global CO2 emissions. And that was, of course, an eye-opener, and for us as a group, it meant we really embarked on our Go to Zero mission to become carbon neutral by 2050. This is a driving theme. We are going to invest until 2025 alone 14 billion euro in the various aspects of this, not only the electrification of the vehicle fleet, but also infrastructure like gigafactories for the batteries around the world, infrastructure improvement in the companies, many things. And this is taken up by all the brands. And I just brought you one example from the Škoda brand in Czech Republic, how they are addressing the Go to Zero, the green future, as we call it there. To the next level of the transformation which moves us in the industry. Resources, as we know for this, and was also mentioned, lithium, for example, cobalt, come from countries, regions like Africa. And in the past decades, we must say, we have really treated these countries and regions as resources. And that needs to change, of course. We cannot exclude Africa from the transformation, Africa from having better gross domestic products, including their people into the development and giving them better lives in the end. That's why we will need a different supply chain. We will need a sustainable supply chain. We will need sustainable production, of course, and sustainable use. Recycling was also mentioned, but I would like to focus on the supply chain for a moment.
That's a very tough act to follow, even though I would love to commit to have lots more Audis on the platform. We're probably a little bit distance away from that. Thank you for making the time. It is a privilege to be here in this room, particularly for 3 reasons. One is this is a topic which is deeply close to my heart and a commitment which Uber is working on, and I'll talk a bit more about it. Second, it's a privilege to be in the state of Telangana, which is truly, by hosting this week, and I must applaud the efforts, is driving awareness and adoption of a topic which is very critical for the entire country, not just for the region. And third, this is personal. I like to think of myself as the son-in-law of this city, if not the son. And this is particularly important that we are here, and I'm glad that we are able to share our thoughts on what it will take when we imagine the future of mobility for ride-hailing to play a big role in that. But before we do that, just a quick show of hands. How many of you have the Uber app installed on your smartphone? Just a quick show of hands. Oh, that's encouraging. We hope to get to 100% for some of you who missed out. Please talk to me after this session. But today, if you were to open the Uber app, there is a 1 in 50 chance that an electric vehicle will show up on your doorstep if you are in Hyderabad. Fast forward, 15 years later, that number will be closer to 100%. And that in some form is the journey and the migration which we are all collectively working towards. I'm going to talk a little bit about the optimism, but a lot more around the challenges on what it will take for us to move from that 1 out of 50 zero-emission vehicles to 100 on 100 emission vehicles when you are able to request through the Uber app in this country. And as you do that, I want you to visualize a person, a caricature, a person called Raj Singh, who is 42 years old, an Uber driver in Delhi, an immigrant from a rural village in Rajasthan, and he migrated about 80 kilometers away, leaving his family behind, and he travels back once every month to meet them. He used to be a taxi driver in the city of Delhi, 2013, driving about 4 to 5 hours a day, not necessarily having predictability, not necessarily having clarity on when he will be paid because the payment terms were skewed against him. Let's fast forward. He first embraced shared mobility, which allowed him to leverage the demand being generated on ride-hailing platforms to become his own boss. He got flexibility, he got respect, and he got an access to digital tools which allow him to then choose to work when he wants, where he wants, and in the process also improve his earnings. As a next step, he embraced multimodality, terms which we have spoken about. With the money which he earned, he actually took the bet to put on 8 new two-wheelers as food delivery platforms and ride-hailing platforms diversified, which allowed him to use the same infrastructure, use the same knowledge of what he does, and be able to take it to a different form factor altogether. In some form, mirroring what the shared mobility space was also going through. But now he's facing a dilemma. 2023, a large part of his fleet, both two-wheelers and four-wheelers, are reaching end of life. And he has to take a judgment call on whether he wants to actually buy an electric vehicle. And the honest answer is, there's a very high chance he may not do that because he has questions in his mind. There are certain barriers which he and several other low-income category users, but often who are contributing a very large proportion of high kilometers run on the road. They face a question which, in some form, this group and the policymakers and the industry together have to solve. And this is really about reimagining models which will give confidence to reduce the barriers of adoption of zero-emission vehicles, particularly electric vehicles in the ecosystem. Before I come and talk about how will we go about doing that, let's step back. We spoke about mobility's role in contribution to what the agenda on climate change is. No doubt. The 3 legs in my mind on what the mobility sector overall needs to do. Number 1 is how we think of designing the cities to enable micro-mobility, walking, and more importantly, public transit. Second is really around also rapid scaling of public transit systems, and even more importantly, how to move people into the public transit and move them out of the public transit systems in an efficient digital manner. And then third is, which is where bulk of the time and energy spent today, is how do we drive a rapid migration to zero-emission vehicles. I spoke about the barriers on this number 3 point, which is migration to zero-emission vehicles. The barriers are obvious, but just to bring it to life from a Raj Singh's perspective, is first around access to affordable vehicles. Today, the lowest cost vehicle in the commercial space is 11 to 12 lakh rupees, while an alternative would be available to him in the IC phase with slightly worse emissions on a CNG basis from 6.5 lakh rupees. Where is the vehicle which will make it easy for Raj Singh to commit his capital to be able to buy the second vehicle? Second is the charging infrastructure, which again, as we spoke about, many of us have to come together to make that happen. We need to solve that core challenge. We also need to create a second-hand EV marketplace. Because if you're an asset owner or an asset buyer today, you do need confidence that in 3 years, 5 years' time, as technology innovation happens, there will be a buyer for that vehicle when they reach end of life. And the third, there is still the gap between what a vehicle total cost of ownership leads to and what a vehicle can earn, and there need to be financial incentives which will bridge that gap. I compliment both the government of Telangana and other state governments across the country who are taking the lead in this, but we need to do more. And we need to do more tomorrow, we need to do more yesterday, and it is high time we are able to mobilize as an industry and really come together as a team sport to make that happen. But let's reimagine what that future could look like.
Some of the findings of our research. Bloomberg NEF, as was mentioned in the introduction, we are a research house. We work on energy transition related matters. And we heard a fascinating story about Raj Singh. It was a really inspiring story, really bottoms up story about how things are happening and changing. So let me give you a perspective from what it looks like from top down. Now, 2022 was a fascinating year for India, and primarily because India overtook the United Kingdom to become the world's 5th largest economy. We overtook Japan to become the world's 3rd largest auto market. And by some estimates, India also overtook China to become the most populous nation on the world. Now, India's census is yet to happen, so we'll get the official figures later on, but this is based on some trends and patterns that have happened over the years. I'm mentioning these stats because these three combined play a very important role in the way in the way our mobility is defined in the future, especially in India. So let's take a look start by taking a look at what's happening at the global level. And this is a bird's eye view of what's happening. So we see that 9% of all the EV sales, all sales of passenger vehicles globally were from the electric vehicle side. This data is for 2021. I apologize. There are a few data sets that will be from 21 just because we haven't published the 22 updates, but the trends and the storylines remain the same throughout. There are several countries that are leading this transition, and countries like Norway, countries like China, they have double-digit numbers when it comes to total share of EVs in annual passenger vehicle sales. And then there are a host of countries that are from lower single-digit to higher single-digit range. So where does India lie over here? And there are two main messages in this chart. First one, as you can see in 2022, India sold around 48,000 electric vehicles. And you can see there is a massive jump, more than three times jump that happened in 2022. We believe that the sales of electric vehicles will continue to grow in the country. And next year, maybe around 59,000 electric vehicles will be sold. The second point is on the percentages side. So the total electric vehicles sold in the country, they represent about 1.3% of total passenger vehicles that were sold. So, sorry. We'll talk about what led to this massive ramp up, of sales in 2022, and then we'll also talk about what is leading to the lower share of percentages in annual electric vehicle sales. Let's look at the first ones, the rising numbers first. And what has happened is that globally, there is a rising consumer interest in compact SUVs, which has also influenced the rise of sales of compact SUVs and in turn EVs in India. The chart on the left, you see there are two stories over here. First of all, you see that most of the vehicles sold in India in 2021 were in the SUV category. This includes compact SUVs and multi-utility vehicles. And second thing is that more than 80% of vehicles sold in the country are below $20,000. And Nexon was launched, Tata Nexon was launched right in this category, which led to a massive jump in the numbers. So it was earlier mentioned in the presentation today that affordability of a vehicle is a key metric. And affordability with the right performance can enable us to have a good jump in sales on the electric vehicle side. Interestingly, in 2021, Tata Motors had also mentioned that 65% of all their consumers, of all their buyers of Nexon were actually first-time buyers. I wanted to highlight this fact because there is still a perception that electric vehicles will only be used as a second car in a family. But actually, 65% of the buyers were first-time buyers, and they wanted to use Nexon as their primary vehicle. So that says something. Now let's take a look at what is leading to this small percentage of total annual sales currently. And there are several concerns of the vehicle owners. Some of it were already mentioned by Pabjit, but I would like to again talk about them. So first of all is charger availability. The range anxiety actually plays a big role in the way how consumer thinks about their vehicles. They are also concerned about the battery, the safety of it, and the life of it. Again, resale of electric vehicles was discussed earlier, and consumers it always weighs on the mind. What will be the recyclability of the battery? What will be the replacement cycles of the batteries, whether it will be 3 years, 7 years, 10 years? There are so many numbers out there. Then the vehicle performance, when it compares to ICE vehicle, is also a major factor. And finally, choice. Having multiple choices across multiple price points are very important for a successful uptake of EV industry in the country. And thankfully, that is changing. In the next 3 to 4 years, there will be massive types of new vehicles that would come in. I was at the Delhi Motor Show earlier this year. And just by looking at what the automakers had to showcase, I think it would not be far-fetched. Actually, it might be correct to say it was an electric motor show, not just a motor show. And thankfully, we have strong drivers for EVs as well. We all know cost of operation is amongst the lowest for EVs. Policy has been quite conducive so far, and we have seen a lot of support from the buyer's perspective. It is believed that FAME scheme will expire pretty soon. And what we expect is that the government may not revive the cash incentive policy for the consumer side, but it may still give some tax discounts, or it is also possible that the government will focus on some OEM-led mandates for promoting electric vehicles. Scope 3 emissions were also mentioned. They are also becoming a big driver of emission reductions, and this also actually opens up a few opportunities for the country. Both e-commerce companies, last mile delivery companies, including the Amazons and Zomatos and Swiggies, they are switching over to electric vehicles because it is much cheaper for them to use them. Shared mobility, we heard Hyderabad will have 100% electric vehicles in the next 15 years, and we have seen a rapid uptake of that. Blue Smart in Delhi, at least where I'm based out of, has placed a lot of orders with Tata Motors for its Express 3 models, and recently we heard announcements from Ola as well as Uber on transforming their fleet towards electric. Now, I would like to present something from our long-term studies. We do an annual study on what the future of transportation would look like globally, and for major economies, we have a separate cutout. And this is one of the charts. There are two charts from there. There is a lot to unpack over here, so bear with me. First of all, I think what is very clear is that the share of electric vehicles in total sales, chart on the left, they are quite low up until 2030, but after 2030, you see a massive expansion of that green green bars. And that is because that is when we see that the upfront price of an EV will be comparable or better than an ICE engine vehicle. Other important thing, if you combine both these charts or look at both these charts, is that in our modeling period till 2040, we don't see a peak vehicle scenario coming into India. We have low rates of motorization, and that is why we don't achieve a peak vehicle sales in the country, which is quite different from some other countries where they have already reached a peak or are on the verge of reaching that. Third thing, I think it's not very clear, but if you look closely, then on the left-hand side, you see that annual sales of ICE vehicles will be overtaken by EVs somewhere around the year 2034. But on the fleet level, you will see that happening, ICE being taken over by EVs only by 2038. Lastly, fuel cell is something, again, we don't think that will have a big impact, but there will obviously be some sales of these vehicles. A big difference between the way how electrification is happening around the world and in India is that India's electrification journey will begin from 2 and 3 wheelers. These vehicles are already cost competitive from their ICE counterparts on a TCO basis, which is the total cost of ownership basis. And in the next 2 or 3 years, it is quite possible that they will be competitive on an upfront cost basis as well. And that is why between now and 2030, in this decade, we see a lot of uptake of 2 and 3 wheelers. And after 2030 and 2050, we'll see an uptake in the passenger vehicle side as well.
To our friend Mamta Chamarthi, who's always been a huge supporter of the Telangana ecosystem. Thank you, Mamta, for joining us today. Honorable Member of Parliament from Chevella, Dr. Ranjit Reddy Garu. To our Principal Secretary of Industry, Commerce, Information Technology, Jayesh Ranjan Garu. To all the distinguished delegates who are participating in this event today, the Mobility Next Hyderabad EV Summit. It's a matter of great pride. It's a matter of great delight for me to inaugurate the first edition of the Mobility Next Hyderabad EV Summit, being organized in the best city in India. And I say this in a very, very unabashed manner to any of those who are from outside of India, to any of those who are from outside of Hyderabad as well. And by the way, this is not a self-certification that I'm doing or indulging in. In fact, Mercer, an agency that rates cities on the livability index, has rated Hyderabad as the best city among all Indian cities for 5 years in a row from 2015 until 2020. So therefore, welcome you all to the most livable city and the most lovable city in India. Climate sustainability is one of the most important agendas for governments and non-government organizations and for humanity at large across the world. Transport, public and private, accounts for 1/5 of carbon emissions, and road travel accounts for 75% of mobility emissions. It is important for us to plan the transition to cleaner and sustainable mobility to preserve the world for our future generations and ensure better quality of life for each and every citizen. Given the importance of this topic, I'm proud to announce that Hyderabad is hosting its e-mobility week, a week-long celebration of events to promote clean and sustainable mobility. This will be an annual fixture. This will be an annual fixture starting this year, so I think it deserves a bigger round of applause. This will be an annual fixture, and it will be held every year to foster collaboration by bringing together the thought leaders, experts, and global automotive ecosystem players to chart a course of sustainable mobility for India at large. In addition to this summit, the Hyderabad e-mobility week also includes Rally Hyderabad, which was organized yesterday, the 5th of February, with an objective to promote electric mobility amongst citizens, and it saw a participation of more than 1,000 electric vehicles going on a procession in 2 different routes in the city. Hyderabad e-motor show will also be organized on the 8th of February, the coming Wednesday, which will provide a platform to the automotive companies, startups, and other large OEMs to showcase their next-gen EV models. To showcase the power of e-mobility, I'm also proud to announce that Hyderabad will be the first city in India to host the Formula E race happening on 11th of February. This e-Prix coming to Hyderabad and India for the first time ever is a testament to the direction of progress India has taken. Telangana, the youngest state in India, is already the hub for clean energy in India. State of Telangana is now the second largest producer of solar energy per unit land mass in the country. 20% of Telangana's energy output comes from solar. The state has already installed more than 5,000 gigawatts of solar energy. Telangana also aspires to become the most electrified state in the country in terms of mobility. We also were one of the early adopters of a focused EV and ESS policy in 2020 with an objective to facilitate investments in electric vehicle and energy storage systems, to also increase EV adoption in the state, to also, of course, develop enabling infrastructure, including charging stations, etc. With this policy, we endeavor to provide capital incentives, tax exemptions, subsidies, and other support to companies investing in the state. The response from the industry has been overwhelming. The state has already attracted more than 8,000 crores of investment, more than $1 billion of investments from leading Indian and global companies such as Olectra, Mitra, Grafton, Pure EV, One Moto, Ethrio, Ito, Light Auto, amongst others. The state has already emerged as a leading hub for automotive engineering, research and development in the world with investments from Stellantis, ZF, Hyundai Mobis, Micron, Bosch, Ficosa, amongst others. I'm proud to share that Hyderabad is leading in development of advanced automotive technologies in India, including ADAS, digital cockpit solutions, V2X connectivity, automotive cybersecurity, and others. To further accelerate the growth of sustainable mobility in India, I hereby announce India's first new mobility-focused cluster, the Telangana Mobility Valley. The Telangana Mobility Valley will create best-in-class infrastructure, making Telangana the most competitive destination for both manufacturing and research and development in this space. The vision for TMV has been created with active participation from the industry and academia. The state has also engaged one of the leading consulting firms, the Boston Consulting Group, to help conceptualize and develop a truly differentiated vision for the Telangana mobility. I'm thankful to BCG for all their support and for all their inputs. TMV also aims to facilitate companies across all segments of sustainable mobility: electric two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers and above, advanced cell chemistry and hydrogen fuel cells, Tier 1 and Tier 2 component manufacturers, and auto engineering, research and development companies. The Telangana Mobility Valley has an audacious goal, has an audacious vision of attracting 50,000 crores of investment, about $6 billion of investments, and to generate about 400,000 new jobs, 4 lakh new jobs in the next 5 years. I know it sounds audacious, it sounds a bit ambitious, but I do believe it's immensely doable. For this, we've also identified 4 mega clusters in and around Hyderabad, which will be equipped with the state-of-the-art infrastructure to reduce cost of operations for the tenants. An electric vehicle manufacturing cluster in Zahirabad, an electric vehicle manufacturing cluster in Sitarampur in Chevilla constituency, energy storage system cluster in Divitipalli in Mehboob district, the Telangana Mobility Valley Engineering and Innovation Cluster at Yankatala, Mominpet Mandal in Vikarabad district, spanning more than 1,200 acres. The Telangana Mobility Valley, set up at Yankatala in Vikarabad district, will be India's most comprehensive shared testing and validation infrastructure. This includes state-of-the-art labs for EV powertrain, EV battery, ADAS, NVH, EMI, EMC, and component test labs. India's first CAV proving grounds to test autonomous vehicles. The state has also signed a memorandum of understanding with ATS TUV Rhineland, a leading German services provider, to develop and operate the engineering labs and proving grounds in Yankatala. The company will invest around 350 crore in developing these facilities in Yankatala. I welcome the entire team who's come all the way from Germany. I welcome you all. TMV at Yankatala in Vikarabad will also be home to an automotive university, an automotive exposition center, Industry 4.0 Center of Excellence, homologation facilities, and also several research and development clusters. Our ESS cluster will also have a world-class infrastructure to manufacture lithium-ion cells, cathode active battery material, and other lithium-ion components. The cluster will also have a battery recycling facility to minimize carbon footprint and reduce costs of production for developing battery packs for EVs. Another focus area for Telangana Mobility Valley is talent development. To transition to the new mobility, there is a pressing need for upskilling and reskilling existing talent. In TMV, we are bringing together industry and academia to set up series of centers of excellence to create industry-ready talent. Proud to announce that India's first center of excellence in automotive cybersecurity, in collaboration with BITS Hyderabad and Bosch, will also be launched in the upcoming year.
TV is quite comprehensive and takes care of number of concerns of the industry. So that's the starting and a very, very good point for you as a state. But what are some of the key challenges the industry faces? I want to just list out some of them. And these are all basically issues which are not pertaining to regulation. These are pertaining to industry itself, the ecosystem itself. So the number one is building partnerships and electromobility ecosystem. So I think that was one thing that no single entity, no single player can do the 360-degree of electromobility. So we will have to partner, whether it is the OEM, the value chain, the battery manufacturers, the charging stations, and all of that, and then the second life, and so on and so forth. The second issue or imperative, and these are not challenges alone, these are great opportunities. These are actually opportunities to create new value chains and create new revenue models. The second one is energy management. Energy management, how do you do that in terms of transmission, distribution, transport optimization, load management? We talked about inefficiencies in the trucking system. How can we do that? So that was the second point we talked about. The third point we talked about was supporting the transition of supply chain from IC engines to electric engines, electric powertrains. So that's a huge, the industry has been used for the last 100 years. The entire value chain, the MSMEs have been used to IC engines. Now suddenly they have to really deal with electric powertrains. So that's the third piece. The fourth piece was developing new businesses and industrial systems. Here, one is looking at a systems approach, not just a component or a product, a complete system to be supplied. Recycling was supposed to be one of the very major issues and opportunities also for the industry. The fifth piece is public transport and electric vehicles. How can electric vehicles drive adoption of public transport? Because one thing was found very, very clear, that while electric mobility will solve greenhouse gas emission problems, it will not solve the congestion problems in the cities if we do not use public transport. So we were looking at mobility as a holistic piece and not just electric part. The sixth point was R&D and the competencies which we need to develop, because it's a moving goalpost. The technology piece is getting up and up every day. How do we invest in R&D technology and take this forward? The seventh piece we were talked about was skills and jobs. How do we create more jobs? How do we upskill our people? Because the skill sets required in the new regime, in the sustainable mobility, will be very different from the previous current regime. So how do we upskill our people and create more jobs for them? And finally was charging strategies. What are the charging strategies? Do we do battery swapping, or do we do depot charging, or opportunity charging, or even home charging? So these were some of the things which we discussed. But overall, we believe that the Telangana state EV and energy storage policy has, to a large degree, addressed many of these challenges. So that's the one good piece. We see that partnerships will play a key role. With that in mind, I see today's roundtable as a key step in that process. So compliments to you and your government for hosting all of us on this very important, I would say, platform to discuss how do we take the sustainable mobility initiative forward, and Telangana becomes the key architect in driving this whole revolution in India. With this, sir, I'd like to welcome you and invite you for your key words. Thank you.
Firstly, let me start saying good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, Hyderabad. I want to see a loud cheer for Mr. KTR Garu, because he not only is a visionary, but when there is a great idea, knows how to support that great idea. So thank you so much, and good afternoon to all of the dignitaries on the stage, Mr. Jayesh Ranjan Garu, Mr. Kamal Bali, and Mr. I forgot, Ranjit Reddy Garu. And thank you for supporting from your constituency. So my excitement here is what started as an idea several years ago. When I first came to Hyderabad, of course, I was born here, so I did not come first to Hyderabad. I came here first because I was born here. But I came for ZF to set up an R&D center. And looking at the entrepreneurial spirit of the government, I thought, why not take this entrepreneurial spirit and create an ecosystem over here to make a huge impact to sustainable mobility. Yes, of course, there's quite a bit of risk in such kind of a huge idea. And when I presented this idea to one of our BCG partners sitting here in the audience, he said, this is impossible. This is very hard to achieve. I recently bought a Maserati MC20. By the way, next time you come to Detroit, I want you to try that. It goes 0 to 60 under 3 seconds. Okay? So the speed at which the government of Telangana is moving is setting that kind of a record-breaking speed, I would say. 0 to 60, not under 3 seconds, but 0 to 60, proving to the whole world what can be done when we all come together, from academia to government to automotive industry to tier 1 suppliers, all of us coming together, each and every one of us, to make our planet a greener planet. So let's talk about why Telangana Mobility Valley is in the sweet spot. So the last time that the automotive industry went through such a huge transformation was about 100 years ago. 100 years ago, we as humanity switched from riding horses to a car. And this is when Henry Ford went to a meat packing plant, looked at how meat was packed on an assembly line, and thought that cars should also be built on an assembly line. That was 100 years ago. So the industry is ripe for disruption right now. And this disruption is about sustainability. It's about safety. It's about new customer experience, which can only be addressed by talent that Hyderabad offers, and with the benefit of a pro-business government that both enables and accelerates meeting the needs of not just Hyderabad, but meeting the needs of the planet. That's why Telangana Mobility Valley is firmly placed in this kind of a sweet spot. So let's go through each one of these areas, starting with the automotive industry. So when you look at the auto industry, and when you look at the customers, and how is it changing? Firstly, the customers are saying, I have a new mindset, and I have a new set of values. I want my car to be sustainable, but I want my vehicle to know me and personalize my experience for me and seamlessly connect with my digital life. My vehicle understands my mood, and perhaps, since I'm in Hyderabad, knows that I'm in the mood for an old Hindi song, or maybe even an old Telugu song, and plays that to me when I'm sitting in the car from my Spotify. I want my vehicle to be safe, secure, and reliable. Not only secure, but cyberly secure. 1.2 million people die in car crashes every year. Just to give you a context, the very first year that we had COVID, in 2019 to 2020, there were an incremental 1.2 million deaths. And with car crashes, we are seeing that number of deaths every year. And so with artificial intelligence stepping into the car with autonomous driving, we can reduce that human error, which is 90% of the car crashes happen because of human error. Artificial intelligence augmenting the driver intelligence can decrease the number of crashes, increase the safety, and most of those 1.2 million people can go home to their families. It's not just about a cool thing. It is about the auto industry having a social responsibility to be safe and secure. Customers not only want to feel physically protected, but given all of the data gathering, they want to be cyber protected too. And the preference is in this digital world to seamlessly connect to the cloud. And as I speak to the car, with cloud first, the car just interacts with my voice, and responds to me. So in the past, my car only felt new for the first 3 months, maybe a year. But now with over-the-air updates, the car remains fresh. And this is the kind of talent that the auto industry is looking for. So if you go on to the next one around talent and Hyderabad and what Hyderabad offers. So when you look at all of the things that I talked about in the auto industry, we need electrical talent, electronics talent with all of the sensors in the car collecting the data, and we need lots of software talent. And that's where Hyderabad comes in abundance of this talent. And from just a couple of hundred of people in the auto industry in 2016, 2017, now Telangana boasts about more than 10,000 people. And as KTR Garu has said, I challenge not to grow it to 500,000 or 50,000 jobs. I would say we can increase it by 10x and show the whole world how fast Telangana and Hyderabad can move. And it's not only talent, but look at the talent that's coming from the city. Not only a customer-first mindset, but a sustainability mindset, because Hyderabad has been voted as the iconic green city, beating Paris, beating number of the other cities in the world. This is just amazing. And the quality of life here in Hyderabad is just the best. And look at the tech companies that are coming to the city and that are in the city. This is the talent that we are looking at in the auto industry. So what is Telangana Mobility Valley? And again, in 2017, the idea was born, and in 2019, 2020, the dream became a reality when the government accepted the proposal, and we brought in BCG. Thanks to the entire BCG team that's sitting in the audience. You've done an incredible, incredible job. Javier, Sushma, Dhruv, Anmol, I think I'm missing a few names, but you guys have done an amazing job. And with a special shout out to my friend in the audience, Amarnath Reddy. And I think we talk past my hours of work in the US, between 9 p.m. and midnight is when we work on the Hyderabad Telangana Mobility Valley. So thank you, Amar, for being a partner in crime. And in 2023, all of this excitement, and this conference is not only going to be this year, but it's going to repeat every year. And together, we are going to drive that sustainable movement. And so the Telangana Mobility Valley, no one auto company does have all of the resources to disrupt themselves for the planet to be green. We all need to come together to create an engineering zone, manufacturing zone, innovation, talent, and experience, bring everyone together and create an ecosystem to disrupt mobility.
Minister, Honorable Member of Parliament, Honorable T.S. Redco Chairman, dignitaries, invitees, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to sincerely thank all of you for your indulgence. The session, which is about to conclude in a few moments, actually was supposed to be the opening session of today's summit. But many of you would know the budget was being presented in the State Assembly, and Honorable Minister had to attend it compulsorily. But nevertheless, I'm very happy that so many outstation participants, so many delegates have chosen to continue here. They have listened to us. They have been a part of this very momentous announcement about the Telangana Mobility Valley. And I'm really very thankful to all of you. As the organizers of this summit, on behalf of the government, we take this summit very, very seriously. While speakers like Mr. Kamal Bali, Mamta, and so many of the industry representatives have appreciated the policy that we brought out 2 years ago, we recognize that this is a very dynamic field. There's very rapid advancement of knowledge, advancement of best practices. It is also a very competitive field. And therefore, we should also be very agile in upgrading our policy, our approach. And therefore, we value the inputs all of us are sharing with us in this summit. Our teams have made already made note of some very important points which need to be incorporated in the addendum to the policy that we'll be bringing out very soon. And hopefully in the sessions, the 2 sessions that are still going to happen from now, we will continue to get useful and very practical inputs from all of you. As Honorable Minister pointed out, this will become an annual feature hereafter. This year itself, we have received overwhelming response. Some of the who's who of the industry, of the academia, the best of the practitioners have chosen to come here and address all of us. And I hope that in future, the e-mobility summit will become even more rich and really become an important landmark on everyone's calendar. I would like to thank the knowledge partners for this summit, the BCG team. I would also like to thank CII, particularly Mr. Kamal Bali, Mr. Shekhar Reddy, and the rest of the team for helping us put together such a mammoth event. And most importantly, I would like the team, my team in the IT and Industries department, who worked for almost more than a month to organize each and every nuts and bolts for this very, very successful summit. Ladies and gentlemen, this session comes to a close, but as I said, there are 2 more sessions before the end of the day, and then I would invite all of you to be a part of, remain engaged with rest of the events which are happening over the course of the next 4 days. The startup event which is happening at the T-Hub tomorrow, the bike and car show which will happen at Hightex the next on Wednesday and Thursday, and then of course the actual racing which happens on the 10th and 11th. Thank you very much once again, and hope to stay connected with all of you.